Hi guys, welcome to another video here. I'm going to be reading from a book. Okay, we're going to be starting here. This is The First and Last Freedom by Jiddu Krishnamurti, 1953. And if you don't know this guy, he's an absolute legend. Okay, so the name of this book is The First and Last Freedom, and the writer is Jiddu Krishnamurti. 1953 there is when he wrote this, I'm guessing. You see at the top here we've got a website as well, www.jiddu-krishnamurti.net, so you can check that out. If you go on YouTube, you can find videos and very fascinating interviews and talks by the man himself, Krishnamurti. Now, I've got a couple of his books on my phone, and I'm going to be reading from his books, and we can enjoy some of this together. Okay, this is for deep, open-minded, clear thinkers who want to, understand life a bit more, not from anyone's narrative per se, and the bombardment we get from all this information that's just fabricated a lot of the time. This is about trying to find clarity in the human mind and in truth in our actions, Okay, so this is very important. Look at the name of this book first of all. The First and Last Freedom. It's got to be truth, hasn't it? Truth is that. Yeah. There's no freedom without truth. There's no truth without freedom, we could say. Anyway, let's just get straight to it. So, chapter 1, right? We can see all of the chapters. How many chapters are there in this book? Quite a few. Oh my goodness. So you've got like 21 chapters. We've got these questions here as well. Questions. It says questions which go up to 38. So we're going to basically read them. Let's look, not in one video. I'm going to basically try to do maybe a chapter per video. And if we can get through this whole book, then that's going to be a big feat, a big thing. So let's see. Okay. Chapter 1 is the introduction. So let's just read it, okay? Some of these have very interesting titles too, the headers. Okay, let's have a look. So, Foreword by Aldous Huxley. Okay, it says, man is an amphibian. Okay, man is an amphibian who lives simultaneously in two worlds, the given and the homemade. Yep. The world of matter, life, and consciousness, and the world of symbols. In our thinking, we make use of a great variety of symbol systems: linguistic, mathematical, pictorial, musical, ritualistic. Okay. Without such symbol systems, we should have no art, no science, no law, no philosophy, not so much as rudiments of civilization. In other words, we should be animals. Symbols, then, are indispensable, but symbols as the history of our own and every other age makes so abundantly clear, can also be fatal. Consider, for example, the domain of science on the other hand, the domain of politics and religion on the other. Thinking in terms of and acting in response to one set of symbols, we have come in some small measure to understand and control the elementary forces of nature. Thinking in terms of and acting in response to another set of symbols, We use these forces as instruments of mass murder and collective suicide. In the first case, the explanatory symbols were well chosen, carefully analysed, and progressively adapted to the emergent facts of physical existence. In the second case, symbols originally ill chosen were never subjected to thoroughgoing analysis and never reformulated so as to harmonize with the emergent facts of human existence. Worse still, these misleading symbols were everywhere, treated with a wholly unwarranted respect, as though, in some mysterious way, they were more real than the realities to which they referred. In the contexts of religion and politics, words are not regarded as standing, rather inadequately, for things and events. On the contrary, things and events are regarded as particular illustrations of words. Up to the present, symbols have been used realistically only in those fields which we do not feel to be supremely important. In every situation involving our deeper impulses, we have insisted on using symbols not merely unrealistically, but idolatrously. Was that? Sorry, idolatrous, idolatrously. Sorry, even insanely. The result is that we have been able to commit in cold blood and over long periods of time acts of which the brutes are capable only for brief moments at the frantic height of rage, desire, or fear, because they use and worship symbols. Men can become idealistic, and being idealists, they can transform the animal's intermittent greed into the grandiose imperialisms of a Rhodes or a J.P. Morgan. The animal. Let me turn that light on. Hold on. Sorry. It's hard to see. Okay. The animal's intermittent love of bullying into Stalinism or the Spanish Inquisition. The animal's intermittent attachment to its territory into the calculated frenzies of nationalism. Happily, they can also transform the animal's intermittent kindliness into the lifelong charity of an Elizabeth Fry or a Vincent de Paul. The animal's intermittent devotion to its mate and its young into that reasoned and persistent cooperation which up to the present has proved strong enough to save the world from the consequences of the other, the disastrous kind of idealism. Will it go on being able to save the world? The question cannot be answered. All we can say is that with the idealists' nationalism holding a bomb, holding the A bomb, the odds in favour of the idealists of cooperation and charity have sharply declined. Even the best cookery book is no substitute for even the worst dinner. The fact seems sufficiently obvious, and yet throughout the ages, the most profound philosophers, the most learned and acute theologians have constantly fallen into the error of identifying their purely verbal constructions with facts. Hold on. Or into the yet more enormous error of imagining that symbols are somehow more real than what they stand for. The word worship did not go without protest. Only the Spirit, said St. Paul, gives life. The letter kills. Okay. And why? Asks Eckhart, if I'm pronouncing that right, Eckhart. Why do you prate of God? Whatever you say of God is untrue. At the other end of the world, the author of one of the Mahayana Sutras affirmed that the truth was never preached by the Buddha, seeing that you have to realize it within yourself. Such utterances were felt to be profoundly subversive and respectable. People ignored them. Excuse me for 1 second. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, hold on. So it says, people ignored them. The strange, idolatrous overestimation of words and emblems continued unchecked. Religions declined, but the old habit of formulating creeds and imposing belief in dogmas persisted even among the atheists. In recent years, logicians and semanticists have carried out a very thorough analysis of the symbols in terms of which men do their thinking. Linguistics has become a science, and one may even study a subject to which the late Benjamin Whorf gave the name of metalinguistics. All this is greatly to the good, but it is not enough. Logic and semantics, linguistics and metalinguistics, these are purely intellectual disciplines. They analyze the various ways, correct and incorrect, meaningful and meaningless, in which words can be related to things, processes, and events, but they offer no guidance in regard to the much more fundamental problem of the relation of man in his psychological totality. On the one hand, and his two worlds of data and of symbols on the other. Okay, his two worlds of data and of symbols on the other hand. Okay. In every region, and at every period of history, the problem has been repeatedly solved by individual men and women. Even when they spoke or wrote, these individuals created no systems, for they knew that every system is a standing temptation to take symbols too seriously, to pay more attention to words than to the realities of which the words are supposed to stand. Their aim was never to offer ready-made explanations and panaceas. It was to induce people to diagnose and cure their own ills, to get them to go to the place where man's problem and its solution present themselves directly to experience. In this volume of selections from the writings and recorded talks of Krishnamurti, the reader will find a clear contemporary statement of the fundamental human problem, together with an invitation to solve it in the only way in which it can be solved, for and by himself. The collective solutions to which so many so desperately pin their faith and are never adequate to understand the misery and confusion that exists within ourselves. And so in the world we must first find clarity within ourselves, and that clarity comes about through right thinking. This clarity is not to be organized, for it cannot be exchanged with another. Excuse me. Organized group thought is merely repetitive. Clarity is not the result of verbal assertion, but of intense self-awareness and right thinking. Right thinking is not the outcome of a mere cultivation of the intellect, nor is it conformity to pattern. However worthy and noble, right thinking comes with self-knowledge. Without understanding yourself, you have no basis for thought. Without self-knowledge, what you think is not true. That's true. This fundamental theme is developed by Krishnamurti in passage after passage. There is hope in men, not in society. Oh, yeah. Not in systems organized religious systems, but in you and in me. Organized religions with their mediators, their sacred books, their dogmas, their hierarchies and rituals offer only a false solution to the basic problem. When you quote the Bhagavad Gita or the Bible or some Chinese sacred book, surely you are merely repeating, are you not? And what you are repeating is not the truth. It is a lie, for truth cannot be repeated. A lie can be extended, propounded, and repeated, but not truth. And when you repeat truth, it ceases to be truth. And therefore, sacred books are unimportant. It is through self-knowledge, not through belief in somebody else's symbols, that a man comes to the eternal reality in which his being is grounded. Okay. Belief in the complete adequacy of superlative value of any given symbol system leads not to liberation but to history, to more of the same old disasters. Belief inevitably separates. If you have a belief, or when you seek security in your particular belief, you become separated from those who seek security in some other form of belief. All organized beliefs are based on separation. Though they may preach brotherhood, the man who has successfully solved the problem of his relations with the two worlds of data and symbols is a man who has no beliefs. Yeah. Because it's ego, so it takes you away. Okay. With regard to the problems of practical life, he entertains a series of working hypotheses which serve his purpose, but are taken no more seriously than any other kind of tool or instrument. With regard to his fellow beings and to the reality in which they are grounded, he has the direct experiences of love and insight. It is to protect himself from beliefs that Krishnamurti has not read any sacred literature, neither the Bhagavad Gita nor the nor the Upanishads. I can't read that too. I say Upanishads. The rest of us do not even read sacred literature. We read our favorite newspapers, magazines, and detective stories. This means that we approach the crisis of our own times, not with love and insight, but with formulas, with systems, and pretty poor formulas and systems at that. But men of goodwill should not have formulas, for formulas lead inevitably only to blind thinking. Addiction to formulas is almost universal, inevitably so, for our system of upbringing is based upon what to think, not on how to think. Okay, so what to think, not on how to think. We are brought up as believing and practicing members of some organization. The communists or the Christian, the Muslim or the Hindu, the Buddhist, the Freudian. Consequently, you respond to the challenge, which is always new, according to an old pattern, and therefore your response has no corresponding validity. Newness, freshness. Okay. If you respond as a Catholic or a communist, you are responding, are you not? According to a patterned thought. Therefore, your response has no significance. And has not the Hindu, the Muslim, the Buddhist, the Christian created this problem? As the new religion is the worship of the state. So the old religion was the worship of an idea. If you respond to a challenge according to the old conditioning, your response will not enable you to understand the new challenge. Right. Therefore, what one has to do in order to meet the new challenge is to strip oneself completely, denude oneself entirely of the background and meet the challenge anew. In other words, symbols should never be raised to the rank of dogmas, nor should any system be regarded as more than a provisional convenience. Belief in formulas and action in accordance with these beliefs cannot bring us to a solution of our problem. It is only through creative understanding of ourselves that there can be a creative world, a happy world, a world in which ideas do not exist. A world in which ideas do not exist would be a happy world because it would be a world without the powerful conditioning forces which compel men to undertake inappropriate action. A world without the hallowed dogmas in terms of which the worst crimes are justified. The greatest follies elaborately rationalized. An education that teaches us not how but what to think is an education that calls for a governing class of pastors and masters, but the very idea of leading somebody is antisocial, yes, and anti-spiritual. To the man who exercises it, leadership brings gratification of the craving for power. Yep, true. To those who are led, it brings the gratification of the desire for certainty and security. The guru provides a kind of dope, but it may be asked, "What are you doing? Are you not acting as our guru?" "Surely," Krishnamurti answers, "I am not acting as your guru. Also, because, first of all, I am not giving you any gratification. I'm not telling you what you should do from moment to moment or from day to day, but I am just pointing out something to you. You can take it or leave it, depending on you, not on me. I do not demand a thing from you, neither your worship, nor your flattery, nor your insults, nor your gods. I say, goods or gods. This is a fact. Look at that either way. This is a fact. Take it or leave it, and most of you will leave it, for the obvious reason that you do not find gratification in it. Yeah. What is it precisely that Krishnamurti offers? What is it that we can take if we wish, but in all probability shall prefer to leave? Is it not, as we have seen, a system of belief, a catalogue of dogmas, a set of ready-made notions and ideals? It is not leadership, not meditation, not spiritual direction, not even example. It is not ritual, not a church, not a code, not uplift or any form of inspirational twaddle. Is it perhaps self-discipline? No, for self-discipline is not as a matter of brute fact. The way in which our problem can be solved. In order to find the solution, the mind must open itself to reality, must confront the givenness of the outer and inner worlds without preconceptions or restrictions. God's service is perfect freedom. Conversely, perfect freedom is the service of God. In becoming disciplined, the mind undergoes no radical change. It is the old self, but held in control. Self-discipline joins the list of things which Krishnamurti does not offer. Can it be, then, that what he offers is prayer? Again, the reply is in the negative. Prayer may bring you the answer you seek, but the answer may come from your unconscious or from the general reservoir, the storehouse of all your demands. The answer is not the still voice of God. Consider Krishnamurti goes on. What happens when you pray? By constant repetition of certain phrases and by controlling your thoughts, the mind becomes quiet, doesn't it? At least the conscious mind becomes quiet. You kneel as the Christians do, or you sit as the Hindus do, and you repeat and repeat, and through that repetition, the mind becomes quiet. In that quietness, there is the intimation of something. That intimation of something for which you have prayed, maybe from the unconscious, or it may be the response of your memories, but surely it is not the voice of reality, for the voice of reality must come to you. It cannot be appealed to. You cannot pray to it. You cannot entice it into your little cage by doing puja bhajan and all the rest of it. By offering it flowers, by placing it, placating it, by suppressing yourself or emulating others. Once you have learned the trick of quietening the mind through the repetition of words and of receiving hints in that quietness, the danger is, unless you are fully alert as to whence those hints come, that you will be caught, and then prayer becomes substitute for the search for truth. That which you ask for, you get, but it is not the truth. If you want and if you petition, you will receive, but you will pay for it in the end. From prayer, we pass to yoga, and yoga, we find, is another of the things which Krishnamurti does not offer. For yoga is a concentration, and concentration is exclusion. You build a wall of resistance by concentration on a thought which you have chosen, and you try to ward off all the others. What is commonly called meditation is merely the cultivation of resistance, of exclusive concentration on an idea of your own, of our choice. But what makes you choose? What makes you say, this is good, true, noble, and the rest is not? Obviously, the choice is based on pleasure, reward, or achievement, or it is merely a reaction of one's conditioning or tradition. Why do you choose at all? Why not examine every thought? When you are interested in the many, why choose one? Why not examine every interest? Instead of creating resistance, why not go into each interest as it arises and not merely concentrate on one idea, one interest? After all, you are made up of many interests. You have many masks, consciously and unconsciously. Why choose one and discard all the others? In combating which you spend all your energies, thereby creating resistance, conflict, and friction. Whereas if you consider every thought as it arises, every thought, not just a few thoughts, then there is no exclusion. But it is an arduous thing to examine every thought, because as you are looking at one thought, another slips in. But if you are aware without domination or justification, you will see that by merely looking at the thought, no other thought intrudes. It is only when you condemn, compare, approximate, that other thoughts enter in. Judge not that ye be not judged. The gospel precept applies to our dealings with ourselves no less than our dealings with others. Where there is judgment, where there is comparison and condemnation, openness of mind is absent. There can be no freedom from the tyranny of symbols and systems, no escape from the past and the environment. Introspection, with a predetermined purpose, self-examination within the framework of some traditional code, some set of hallowed postulates. These cannot help us. There is a translucent spontaneity of life, a creative reality, as Krishnamurti calls it, which reveals itself as immanent only when the perceiver's mind is in a state of alert passivity, of choiceless awareness. Judgment and comparison commit us irrevocably to duality. Hold on. Yeah. Duality. Hold on 1 second. Only choiceless awareness can lead to non-duality. To the reconciliation of opposites in a total understanding and a total love. Ama et fas quod vis. I can't read that properly. Sorry. If you love, you may do what you will. But if you start by doing what you will, or by doing what you don't will in obedience, What again? But if you start by doing what you will, or by doing what you don't will in obedience to some traditional systems or notions, ideals, and prohibitions. Prohibitions. You will never love. Okay, I think I see what they're saying. Hold on. Let me read that again. It says, if you start by doing what you... Oh, okay, I see. Okay, I understand it. Okay, let's continue. I don't want to talk too much. I'm just reading the book, okay? We will talk later. Okay, it says here, because I have my own thoughts on different stuff. As you know, I'm a deep thinker. It says... Sorry, I have to find this now to come back. Sorry, it says here, by doing what you will... Okay. The liberating process must begin with the choiceless awareness of what you will and of your reactions to the symbol system which tells you that you ought or ought not to will it. Through this choiceless awareness, it penetrates the successive layers of the ego and its associated subconscious will come love and understanding, but of another order than that with which we are ordinarily familiar. This choiceless awareness at every moment in all the circumstances of life is the only effective meditation. All other forms of yoga lead either to the blind thinking. Okay, hold on. Blind thinking. Excuse me. Which results from self-discipline or to some kind of self-induced rapture, some form of false samadhi. I can't read that. The true liberation is an inner freedom of creative reality. This is not a gift. It is to be discovered and experienced. It is not to be... it is not an acquisition to be gathered to yourself to glorify yourself. It is a state of being as silence in which there is no becoming. Wow. This is deep, right? Deep. In which there is completeness. The creativeness may not necessarily seek expression. It is not a talent that demands outward manifestation. Yeah. You need not be a great artist or have an audience. If you seek these, you will miss the inward reality. Okay? That's what he's saying. The inward reality. It is neither a gift nor is it the outcome of talent. It is to be found. This imperishable treasure where thought frees itself from lust. Okay. From lust, okay? Ill will and ignorance, where thought frees itself from worldliness and personal craving to be. It is to be experienced through right thinking and meditation. Choiceless self-awareness will bring us to the creative reality which underlies all our destructive make-believes, to the tranquil wisdom which is which is always there, in spite of ignorance, in spite of the knowledge which is merely ignorance in another form. Knowledge is an unfair of symbols and is all too often a hindrance to wisdom, to the uncovering the self from moment to moment. A mind that has come to the stillness of wisdom shall know being, shall know what it is to love. Love is neither personal nor impersonal. Love is love, not to be defined or described by the mind as exclusive or inexclusive. Love is its own eternity. It is the real, the supreme, the immeasurable. Aldous Huxley. That's by Aldous Huxley. Okay, so that was by Aldous Huxley. That was written. Okay, I believe this is the words of Aldous Huxley, and he's just basically talking about some of the meanings of what Krishnamurti was talking about in his book. So that was the introduction part. That was the first part. Okay, let me go back here. So there's quite a lot of reading there. We've finished that for this video. Yeah, it was basically the foreword. I just read the foreword, which is like the start, like just telling you what it is. So in the next video, guys, we're going to start to read this book properly from the chapter 1, the introduction, and then go to chapter 2, what are we seeking, all that, you know. It's a book by Krishnamurti. Now, most of you, a lot of people, if you watch my channel, anyone, my videos, you will know that I'm always talking about my favourite book, which is the Tao Te Ching, okay, written by Laozi, okay, an old Chinese philosopher. And that to me is the most amazing book for me, because it speaks about truth. It's not coming from someone's mind. It's not someone's words, someone's way, limitation, or society. It's just about pure nature and the very essence of like hearing without forcing listening. You know what I mean? Yeah. So a little bit kind of here a moment ago, Aldous Huxley actually touched on that, which is also, he's all pointing out what Krishnamurti is talking about. So Krishnamurti, like most people, Alan Watts, all these legends, the people that I like, Alan Watts, Wayne Dyer is another one, I like Sadhguru, Krishnamurti, of course, yeah. Even other people too, like Jacques Fresco. You got that Osho guy. I mean, you can hear wisdom from all kinds of people. There's another guy, I forgot his name. There's another guy talking about reality. I listen to all kinds of people, even science type people like Roger Penrose and stuff. You can always get bits of knowledge, and you can hear things from different angles of how people see things and how they express it. And it is kind of based on their past too. And we can't even 100% say that it wasn't such a way, or in some areas the same with Laozi. But the point is, most people, they seem like they've very much got their own touch on things. But I like this handful of people I just mentioned because they're really looking at truth. They're really very, very logical. But what I'm saying is, in Laozi's book, the Tao Te Ching, in that book, is a very simple little book. And it's very, very clear. You can see that he's not talking about things from a worldly angle much. He's just pointing towards absolute truth. Now, Krishnamurti is one of the people that is very much similar. Of course, a lot of these people, they still have their worldly way. I would say with Laozi, he was purely talking straight pointing to the heart of absolute truth, universal nature, beyond any thinking, feeling, or anything. Yeah? That's why it's so important. That's why I think it's so profound, I would say. Now, with Krishnamurti, I like him a lot. Krishnamurti is like, he's coming with that essence of truth, but he goes into different areas, different levels of different areas of different kind of expression, I'd say, of that, too. In it, but he's like, with Krishnamurti, he's very much going deeper into the psychological state of how we are thinking as human beings and how we operate and function within ourselves and act, communicate in our minds and how we act and how we communicate with each other. It's the language of the inner being of the human being. That's what I'd say. He's studying the action of a human being. That's what he's doing. Whereas Laozi is just saying, this is truth. Boom, clarity. This is a nature, yin and yang, right? Okay. But I've always found Krishnamurti's videos also very interesting. I like to listen to him in his interviews, discussions, and all that. Do you know what I mean? And again, you know me, I like to listen to a lot of these old, like Chinese quotes and Japanese old stories and philosophy like Zen and all this. I like to listen to Alan Watts and telling stories and those kind of things online. You see those kind of old stories and old proverbs. I like all that. It's very interesting, yeah. But you can't. It's true. You can't get lost in the romanticizing because you like that style or that culture or that kind of thing or those stories per se. Those set of events in a story, whether they were true or not. It's the same as going into a religion blindly or going into anything, reading any book. It's not about that. The most important thing is listening to the self. Is truth. Do you know what I'm trying to say? It's like if you have a paper cup, then the water's gonna seep through the cup. You know what I mean? If you drop a rock in water, it's just gonna sink. It's just the facts are the facts. It's not gonna float, right? It doesn't matter what style you paint the rock red, you paint the rock blue. When you drop it in the water, it's gonna fall through. So the truth is most important. If we don't have truth, we can't understand anything. We need to understand what we are thinking and what we're doing. So this is another thing I'm saying. So you have this thing called truth, analyze truth. Laos has talked about that. Now Krishnamurti is talking about how we behave, not as a performance, but how we are reading ourselves, how we are experiencing this thing, how we are acting, how we are reading this thing as a receiving of information as we are speaking it. It's the practice what you study, what you practice as you practice what you study. As one thing, you know what I mean? The living of life as an aware, active energy as one. Awareness and active energy as one. Simultaneous, two different things, but as one. In the life and knowing it as opposed to the death, which of course is also studying the two sides, as Laozi said, which is yin and yang, as I say. So it's very interesting, right? I've got about 2 books on my phone. I'm reading here, okay, on the computer, by Krishnamurti. I think I've just got these 2 on the phone, but yeah, we're going to start to read this book. So I hope everybody enjoys the videos when I do them. I won't do it every day, but just like sometimes when we come back, I will make another video like this and we will I will try to read one chapter or one part. We've got questions at the bottom of the book too, we'll do those as well. But we'll try to do one chapter per video. Okay? And I may make other videos too, looking into certain parts from those chapters. Analysing parts of saying my thoughts, sharing my thoughts on things. In these videos, it's a lot to read. So I hope you appreciate the fact I'm showing, when I can, show the text on the screen. Is one thing I'm doing for you guys too. And I hope you appreciate firstly also that I'm sitting here reading this for you. It's a form of audio book, you can say. My reading's not always spot on. Some pronunciation of certain words I don't know, I'm not familiar with. I can't help that, okay. Sometimes we're humanly a bit, sometimes like I'll slow down or whatever. But I prefer doing it this way rather than using AI. And it's interesting for me. I'm reading it for the first time for myself too. This book. So, yeah. And the best thing sometimes is to read a book or watch a movie more times, or take more time on it and watch it again to get time to think. Usually, that's what you want to do. You want to read and stop and think about it for a moment. But for the videos, I'll try to read it at a fairly normal speed, not too fast, not too slow. It's a lot to take in. for readers and non-readers alike, for deeper thinkers or simpler people, I'm just saying, but it's a lot to learn. And remember, reading doesn't mean following. Listening, watching, it doesn't mean following. Studying doesn't mean following. You know what I mean? A map is not forcing you to follow it. A map is just information. You know the map, so you know where you want to go now. That's the thing. But as you walk around the world, you should be understanding that what's right for you and what's not right for you. You see what I'm saying? So I'll be making more videos as we go. I'll be reading different chapters one chapter per video. Okay. And if for some reason I have to break it up and do 2 parts of a chapter or something like that, maybe that may happen. I'll just note it on there. We'll try and do it the best we can. Okay. Hope you enjoy this. Peace. Hope you appreciate that. I'm just finding it interesting, and I'm just sharing. That's the most important thing. 2 things at once there. Okay, is what I'm doing. Okay. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys again very soon. More videos to come. Take care.